Honey, I'm home. Yeah! I like it. God, I love being a dinosaur.
Dinosaurs was about what caused the dinosaurs to go extinct, which was marrying and having children, which killed them immediately.
Everybody just loved working on that show.
If people really knew how demanding it was going to be going in, would we have done it the same? I'm not sure.
Certainly there was nothing else like it on television.
It's one of the most ambitious shows ever made.
It started with Jim and I having lunch and talking about this idea, let's do a show about dinosaurs, dinosaur thinking, and let's do it as a sitcom.
He had the idea of a family of dinosaurs and that they live very irresponsibly and bigger than life and everything's reckless. Early in his career, he did ads for Le Choy Chinese food. And he did the Le Choy Dragon. The Le Choy Dragon just wrecks everything, and I think my dad always thought that was a hilarious character, and I think maybe it had the roots in that.
Dinosaurs, in a nutshell, was about dinosaur-style thinking. There's an endless supply of natural resources, and we can use them at our will, and sort of we're the biggest species on the planet, and everything else can kind of, if it's good for us, it's good for us. And that was originally Jim Henson's concept.
And we're going to rule the world forever.
Kirk was designing the characters, and those designs and sketches and paintings went through several iterations.
Because he really liked to visualize things and sort of get kind of the world sketched out before he started worrying about specific details. We just started talking about that and kind of the fun you could have and the different various characters, so I went off and started sketching. And then, unfortunately, Jim passed away.
And because Jim had died, they knew they needed creative help from sort of situation comedy veterans, so they brought in Michael Jacobs and me.
What I wanted to do was be able to tell contemporary stories using the dinosaurs as a frame of reference.
I think that's what it was about. I mean, it branched off from all the different aspects of that, from the environment to political things to war. But it was, again, that sort of old-fashioned thinking.
You could attack issues much better when the characters are not quite human.
We are required by our Constitution to let the voters think. They have a choice. That's democracy.
Then from there, Michael Frith, actually, who is one of our art directors in New York and a very, very fine illustrator, he then put those characters into environments that represented sets and living rooms and how the show might look, and those were very compelling.
Dinosaurs arrived at a really interesting time on television. At this point, comedy was flourishing. And ABC had their TGIF evening.
The Antediluvian Broadcasting Company now begins its broadcast day.
Luckily, ABC agreed to make 13 of them because it was a show that you could never pilot the way that we wanted to do it. I think at one point we calculated how much a pilot would have cost, and it was like $6 or $7 million.
You had an entire creature shop that doesn't exist in any other situation comedy. An entire group of 30 or 40 professionals who were there to keep the dinosaurs running, create these odd-shaped costumes. Every costume had to be built from scratch.
And we decided to do animatronic characters the likes of which you'd never seen on television up till then.
Well, we had this incredible technology that we'd been doing with the Ninja Turtles movies. We thought, what a great technology to use in a weekly sitcom.
Well, the network didn't quite believe it, and I didn't quite believe it until I saw the process take place.
Really, we were taking what was film techniques from our creature shop in London and bringing it over here and trying to do a very ambitious animatronic show on a weekly basis.
One of the ideas originally was we didn't want them all to be the same because it was just kind of more fun to play with the rules of evolution and all that. The father was a megalosaurus, the wife was more of like a tyrannosaurus type, and the son and the daughter were sort of made up.
Charlene. Don't wanna.
Proud of you, Dad.
Go get help.
I remember one of the design issues with Earl.
Earl? Earl's Sneed Sinclair.
Earl Sinclair.
And he looked much more gruff.
I looked at him, and my first thought was he was too fierce.
I say this with all love and everything, but I don't give a damn about your day.
He's got sort of this big, kind of lantern jaw. And we softened that and made him kind of more of a chubby, kind of, a second chin.
When we changed Earl's aspect softened. He became less a barroom brawler than he did a dinosaur everyman, which is what we always wanted to do.
One of the characters that changed through the design process was the mother-in-law. Fran's mother originally was a pterodactyl who was going to hang upside down with all this jewelry and hang upside down in the closet. At the end of the day, we actually used her some good story concepts, and if she was just hanging around in the closet, it wouldn't have been as useful.
At my age, what do I have to live for?
Fran, I am not letting your mother move into my house and spend the rest of her days making my life miserable.
Take me home, dear.
We weren't trying to go for realistic dinosaurs. It wasn't obviously a scientifically accurate show. So it was a lot of fun in that respect because dinosaurs traditionally had been done very realistically, and we were trying to do sort of, make fun of human foibles and human nature. So they were much more anthropomorphic than most dinosaurs had been.
The writing really was fabulous on that show.
My feeling was that we were going to be able to write for these characters things that you just couldn't write out of the mouths of human beings.
Dad, you're not going to turn into one of those land-raping executive types, are you?
You, if they'll only give me the chance.
We had to decide what they were going to be. What were we trying to say?
The catchphrases.
Fran, I'm home. I'm hungry.
I think they mostly came from Michael Jacobs.
So we thought, let's have a baby. Let's have the baby talk right out of the egg.
I sort of just watched what was going on at home in my house, what horrors my third son Ethan was going through as a baby.
Bob, immediately sitting next to me, started saying, not the mama.
I really wish you'd grow out of this.
Well, that's great. Catchphrase number one. And Bob said, I'm the baby, gotta love me.
Hi, I'm the baby, brand new, just out. Gotta love me, come on, gotta love me.
And we were off and running with this character.
The creating of the dinosaurs themselves, the original build, that first build, was really primarily in England. So the characters were built over there. And then once they were here, the show stayed here. And they started by sculpting the characters in what we call maquette form.
What a maquette does is you can do it over a small sculpt of a human with the right human proportions and know, okay, this is a design that works physically, but it's going to weigh 200 pounds.
Once the designs and the maquettes have been made, we then have to work out how we're going to actually make the characters. We'd start building on both the suit, i.e. the neck down, and we'd start sculpting the head.
The heads were where all of the electronics were going to be.
And then there's really like a football helmet inside there that the actor will wear that holds all that, and all that's coming off of the head.
You can see the different eye mechanisms. These are eyelids. This particular character, performer inside, was able to see out of the mouth. That's where his eyes were inside there. It also has a headphone so that they can listen to the puppeteer that's operating the face. And there's a microphone as well so that he can communicate. It's just kind of like wearing a football helmet with a face on it.
In the case of the head, that's molded, and then we cast out a foam latex rubber skin. The end result is this lovely, flexible, light foam skin that acts very much like real skin.
It's like a dream. Somebody pinch me.
I love you.
What they do in the mechanics shop is basically come up with all the animatronics.
Hi, I'm John Criswell, and I make dinosaurs.
They'll even engineer their own devices to achieve the correct effect. The eyes moving, the eyes blinking, the eyebrows moving up and down were often achieved with a couple of different levers that would move up and down. The mechanics, they really do a tremendous job. I mean, it's an engineering feat when you take the skin off and you realize what's going on underneath there. Whoa.
That's genius.
The animatronics like Dinosaurs, there's two puppeteers, one inside, one outside, both equally performing the character, and there's a wild mind meld that happens between them.
It's magic, really.
Yeah, it's mostly smoke and mirrors. It's all fake.
If you leave this house, I will never talk to you again.
Throw in the rest of the family, then you got yourself a deal.
It all has to do with letting the audience know what the character is thinking and feeling at any given time. So for Bill, it's through gesture. For me, it's through voice, pacing, and eye focus. The character became the lead after a while. The performers all knew how to feed that character. The coordination between us wasn't so much of an issue anymore because there was this third thing we were all relating to, essentially. Does that make sense?
Yeah. To me, not probably not to them.
Then they have to be physically adept enough and have, real hand-eye coordination, because these control systems are like playing a piano. They're very tough controls to work. So they have to get so good technically at that they don't really have to think about what their hands are doing.
Yes! This is great!
Get my hand in here, turn the power on, and you can see how I have control over all of these movements on her face. She can blink, and you can see I'm using my left hand here, just my finger, to make her blink like that. And I can move her eyeballs around with my thumb. And when she talked, I would use this thing over here called a Waldo. And so as I talked, I would move this around to make the proper lip shapes for the vowels she was saying. Oh, Earl. I was always keenly aware that I had the cushy job, that I didn't have to get into the suits.
I think the hardest thing, though, was probably figuring out how to walk across the room when you can't really see. You got to figure out how many, in a sense, steps or what the feel, where you're going to grab or if you're going to lean on something. You just kind of had to remember where things were in your mind. There was communication between myself and the puppeteer. But while you're shooting, you can't really tell someone to move left or right. It was usually for me to remember where everything was, if I needed to pick something up or if I needed to sit somewhere. The only time I could really see was when the mouth was open. If you watch some of the episodes and Earl is crossing the room, he tends to kind of sigh a lot. And that was just so I could see for the next 10 feet, where I was going to go. And sometimes I'd have to, back through to sit down and sit. So that maneuvering stuff was always really tricky.
You ever fall asleep inside the suit?
Always. Even when we were shooting.
Baby toy, baby toy. Oh, I like this.
I think the thing that helped get us through was that none of the creators, except Brian probably, who had done this many times before, quite realized what we were getting into.
It was almost an impossible shoot to anticipate how the day's shoot would go.
All of a sudden, there were hammers and nails and stages being built.
You had smoke everywhere, and you had these gigantic, lumbering beasts, 6, 7, 8 feet tall.
We were constantly being barraged by variables.
Bob and I had to go, oh yeah, we understand completely what's going on here, and we'd go back to the writer's room and go, what the heck is happening here?
Oh, I'm so confused.
But I think it's one of the magic things about film, particularly when every shot is an illusion. And with Dinosaurs, every shot's an illusion. It only works from where the camera is, and that's the only place that shot works, is where that camera is placed, and it's making the illusion work from that point of view.
Because we were doing something that nobody, I think, had ever done, everybody really wanted to work hard, and when we worked hard, it was fun. And it was really one of those peak career experiences that you don't get too often, if at all. Camera. Oh, yeah. We didn't know there was a camera. Now I'm nervous. That's all right. It's just, I don't think it's on. Oh, okay.